As anybody of a certain age will know, life is quite short, and at some point I'm going to have to come to terms with the fact that I wasted some of my life not only watching the Terrornauts, but also reviewing it. But I did promise 20 Amicus reviews. I guess I did kind of do this to myself. Hi guys, before we get into it, a very quick disclaimer that you'll find all my other Amicus reviews in my Amicus playlist, and there will be spoilers today if it bothers you. It really shouldn't, not for this film. So, in 1967, Amicus decided to branch out a bit and do some sci-fi. That wasn't their big mistake, because actually, I can see why they might have tried to distinguish themselves from Hammer and do something different. I don't think Hammer were doing any sci-fi in the middle of the 60s. No, the mistake that Amicus made, in my opinion, was making two sci-fi films in the same year. So they did this, The Terrornauts, and another film called They Came From Beyond Space, and released them as a double bill. And given how bad The Terrornauts is and how cheap it looks, I don't get why they just didn't make one decent sci-fi film for twice the budget of The Terrornauts. So this film is about a scientific research station. We've got a bunch of scientists who are living off various grants, and what they've been doing is using a big satellite dish to listen in on various frequencies to try and find alien life, and this is all they've been doing for 4 years. So literally, I just picture them sat there for 4 years going, no, nothing yet. Still no contact with alien life. Oh, lunchtime. Utterly ridiculous. But at the start of this film, they do finally make contact, and an alien race sends a spaceship to Earth in response. It flies straight to the Scientific Research Centre, picks up the Scientific Research Centre, puts it into the underbelly of its ship, and zooms off back to its alien planet. Oh, and now our main characters are obviously still inside the building when it's picked up. So we've got this bunch of characters being flown off into the hemisphere, boldly going where no desperate actors have been before, and once they get to the alien planet, they will have to try and figure out a way to get back to Earth, and of course, ultimately they do. And all this takes place over 58 minutes of bright and breezy and utterly incomprehensible science fiction action, which honestly left me questioning my life choices as to how I spend my evenings. The film was directed by a guy called Montgomery Tully. You might remember him from such films as Two Wives at One Wedding and Who Killed the Cat. This was actually his penultimate movie that he did. I'm just glad it wasn't his swan song. I'm only going to name one actor who was in this film, or actress, should I say, and that would be Zena Marshall. She was in the very first James Bond film, Dr. No. She played Miss Tarot, and I've never seen her in any other film until now. So if there was one cool thing about this experience, it was getting to see Zena Marshall and seeing the proper her as well, because in Dr. No, she's got all this makeup caked on her to make her look a little bit Chinese, a bit like her boss, Dr. No. But in this film, I think I'm seeing the actual Zena Marshall looking as she normally would, which was kind of cool. But that was a very, very small consolation prize for me, because the rest of this movie was extremely difficult. Did I talk about the really colourful Dalek yet? We'll move on to that next. So when the characters get to the main planet, they realise that it's not actually aliens controlling the ship, it's a small robot, i.e. that Dalek type thing I was just referencing. This thing looks like it's been dressed up for alien pride, and it wouldn't shock me, actually, if they just bought it from the dismantled set of one of those 1960s Doctor Who movies. In terms of the characters embroiled in this whole affair, I'd say the main two annoyed me the least. So you've got this Captain Kirk type hero who's just kind of, yeah, I'm going to take charge and get this done. And there's a woman played by Zena Marshall who is there basically to look pretty and support the guy in any way that she can. But there's all these hangers-on with them. I don't understand why they're there. There's this one guy with glasses. He's like some kind of accountant from back on Earth who just happened to be in the building when it was spirited away, and he acts like a budget Frank Spencer. He's just really annoying. He's always tottering around in any scene, just piping up with some pointless comment. And there's also a tea lady who she's like somebody from Coronation Street, like a mid-50s battle axe who's completely unperturbed by the whole thing. It's all just a lark. It's like she thinks she's in a film called Carry On Apollo rather than a serious sci-fi film. But all the characters in this, they're just mostly annoying. I didn't like them at all. Now, I don't want to sound like I'm just relentlessly taking the piss out of a really old film that clearly had no budget. If you followed the channel a while, you'll know that I've praised countless films from this era. Lots of them with fairly small budgets, you know. And I'm not some teenager. I'm a guy in my 40s. I grew up as a kid in the 80s watching lots of old things like Buck Rogers and Man from U.N.C.L.E., things with cheap sets that are nothing like what you get in TV today. And yet I remember really enjoying all that stuff and the various things that I watched in TV and film. And I can't remember ever seeing anything that looked as cheap as the Terrornauts. I went to watch a theatre production of Button Moon once. It was for my brother's birthday. He was only about 6 at the time. And I swear there was more money in that theatre play of Button Moon than in this movie. It wouldn't surprise me if literally everything you see in this film is made of cardboard and plastic. There are lots of miniatures in this film, none of which look particularly convincing. The main alien ship, it looks like something that a child would build at school and then bring home and play with in the bath, at which point it would disintegrate and break up, and then the parent would have to scoop up all the plastic bits out of the bathwater and put them in the bathroom bin. That's the sequence of events that popped into my head when I saw this contraption being pulled along by a piece of string. On the journey from Earth to the alien planet, there's lots of really well-written intellectual scientific discussion. Like at one point one of the characters says, "I've noticed something. We're in space, but there's still gravity. Curious." Yeah, things like that. Eventually we get the big battle on the actual alien planet between our main characters and the villains when they finally show up. There's just a bunch of blokes in paint and loincloths, and it all reminded me of one of the 70s Planet of the Apes films. Can't remember which one. Probably the worst one of all, with lots of dodgy choreography. At one point somebody throws a spear at the main hero. He nimbly dodges it, but this spear is travelling so slowly. If the spear had hit the hero square on the chest, it would have just bounced off him like a rocket bouncing off Superman's chest. There's no way that was going to hurt him. And after all this is done, there's a convenient deus ex machina for the characters to get back to Earth. There's like a circular teleportation machine that can just whisk them away from danger, away from the alien planet. Although it doesn't actually take the characters back to Earth, it takes them to France. But this gives us one last hoot of a moment where all the characters can kind of laugh at the fact that they've ended up in a foreign-speaking land and not America. You know, they've ended up in another alien land of sorts. And then we cut to credits. And for me, at this point, it was a case of, and breathe. It's time to show you the version of the film that I own for this, but obviously I didn't actually buy the film in this instance. I mean, as if I was going to do that. Oh, all right. I bought the Terrornauts, and honestly, I can't remember how much I paid for it. It might have been £7 or £8, but I'm kind of thinking it might have been 11 or 12. I honestly can't remember. I'm afraid to go onto my eBay account and check what I paid for this. But here we are. Something to note, the version I watched was 58 minutes, but I think there's a longer cut, actually on this disc of 74 minutes. And the reason why I watched the shorter version was because apparently the longer version is of less quality. So it says here, you can watch the longer cut, but viewers will notice a drop in quality. So with that in mind, I thought, well, I'll just watch the better looking, shorter version. I'm glad I did. I mean, I'm afraid to think what a 74-minute version of this film looks like. What's the extra 16 minutes that they've chopped out? I mean, maybe the missing 16 minutes is the secret ingredient that makes this film great. Maybe it's like Aliens Special Edition. Maybe there's like great scenes with robot sentries taking out the aliens and stuff like that. I doubt it. It's not going to be that, is it? But yeah, I own the Terrornauts. Won't be watching that one again. But let's get to the Bag of Terror and see how I'm going to score it. I'm going to give it 1.5, and the reason why it's getting this is because it was definitely in the so bad it's good territory, kind of, although there's only any value in that if you watch it with somebody else, and I was watching it alone, sadly. I mean, I've given quite a few films on this channel just a half or just one, so it's not like this film is coming last if I ranked all the films that I've reviewed by score. But yeah, still a really poor film, and I think the next Amicus film after this is They Came Beyond, that other sci-fi film. I mean, I think I will cover that one, even though I'm expecting something like the Terrornauts. The thing about that other one is it's free on YouTube, so at least it won't cost me any money. I'm definitely not going to buy the other one, but I might check it out on YouTube. But that's for another day. Thanks for joining me. Until next time, cheerio, bye-bye.